Question 19. We're shown a cuboid and it has dimensions x centimeters by x centimeters by y centimeters. We're told that x is increased by 10%, y is decreased by 20%, and we're asked to work out and describe the percentage change in the volume of the cuboid. So remember, we don't have our calculators for this. So if you're thinking about making up values of x and y, increasing the value by 10% and decreasing the other value by 20%, working out the volume, it's really not going to help, because what we want to find out is the percentage change. So once you've got your value, say your volume was 500 and something centimeters cubed, that doesn't tell you the percentage change. Okay, so by making up values of x and y won't really help us. What will help is thinking about multipliers. So if we're increasing something by 10%, we should know that that's the same as having a multiplier of 1.1. Okay, so if you think about the original size being 100%, if I'm increasing by 10%, I'm adding that on. So 100 add on 10 gives me 110, and 110%, if remember percent means divided by 100, so 110 divided by 100 is 1.1. If y is being decreased by 20%, applying the same method, so 100% is our original amount, we're decreasing, so we're taking away 20%, and 100 take away 20 is 80%. 80% means 80 out of 100, and 80 divided by 100 is 0.80 or 0.8. Okay, so these are the values we should be using, not made up values of x and y. We're trying to find the volume of the cuboid, so the volume is going to be y times x times x. Try and get in the habit of thinking of the volume of a 3D shape being the area of the front, or the cross section, times by the depth, rather than just thinking, oh, the areas times everything together. If you think of it like this will help you with prisms as well. So the area of the front is y times x, and then whatever the answer is, we would then times it by the depth. So using the values that we have, remember y has been decreased by 20%, so it's 0.8 times x, which was 1.1, times 1.1. Okay, now we need to work this out, and we don't have a calculator, and then that tells you the percentage change. So to work this out, take two values, so you could take that and that, multiply them together, and whatever the answer is, times it by that. Or you could do these two values, and whatever the answer is, times it by 0.8. If you think about it, 1 times 2 times 3 is the same as 1 times 3 times 2. So it doesn't matter which two values you do, as long as you times it by the third value, you get the same answer. I'm going to do 1.1 times 1.1, and I'm going to use the Jossier method again to do this. So I've ignored the points, I've just done 11 times 11. I've drawn a quick grid, didn't take very long. Draw a diagonal line in each box, and then I just do the multiplication. So really, really easy. 1 times 1 is 1, not 2. Remember, that's my tens and units. Start at the right hand side and imagine each of these as a slide. Add each one up. So I've got 1, I've got 2, I've got 1, and nothing. So with decimals, I now put in the decimals after I've worked that out. find out where they meet, go down the slide, the answer is 1.21. Now, whatever the answer was, times now by 0.8. So I'm doing 1.21 times by 0.8. Notice I just ignore the decimals, draw a grid, and work this out. 1 to 8 is 8, 2 8s is 16, 1 8 is 8. Again, really easy. Start the right hand side, add up diagonally. I've got 8, 6, 9. Put the decimal in afterwards. It was 1.21 times by 0.8. So the point goes here. Find out where they meet. So they meet here. Go down the slide. The point would go in front of the 9. So the answer would be 0.968. Now, this is effectively as a multiplier. So if it said, 0.99, that would be a 1% decrease. If it was 0.98, it would be a 2% decrease. If it was 0.97, that would be a 3-degree increase. So effectively, we're trying to make this up to 1. Okay. If you're not too happy with this, you could multiply that by 100 to give you 96.8. That might make it easier to see what you need to add to make that up to 100. So if it was 100, okay, this evaluated to be 100, that means there will be no change whatsoever. So because the value has gone down, a bit like with our multiplier here, we had a multiplier 0.8, which represented a decrease by 20%. 0.96 means it's also a decrease, but it's not 20%, it's actually 3.2%, because 96.8 adds 3.2 takes you to 100. So it's a 3.2% and it's a decrease. So what we need to remember is that we times something by 1, that gives you 100%, which is the original value. If you times something by more than 1, like 1.1, that means it's an increase. So 1.1 would be an increase of 10%. If it was 1.21, that's an increase of 21%. If it was 1.05, that's an increase of 5%. If you times something by a number less than 1, that's a decrease. So when we timesed it by 0.8, that was a decrease by 20%, because 100 take away 20% was 80%, and that as a multiplier was 0.8. If I had 0.99, that would be a decrease of 1%. If it was 0.95, that would be a decrease of 5%. 0.88 would be a decrease of 12%, and so on. So what we worked out was a multiplier of 0.968. Converting it into a percentage made it then easier to see that because it's less than 100 or less than 1, it is a decrease and it's by 3.2%. Because if we added 3.2, that then makes it up to 100. So the question said work out, so we have worked it out, and describe the percentage change. So you must say the percentage and say it was a decrease.